Every sound in the forest seemed amplified, echoing in ways that sent chills down the spine. The rustling leaves whispered secrets only the trees could understand. Even the faintest snap of a twig felt like a warning, a signal that unseen eyes were watching. The forest was alive in a way that made human comprehension seem trivial, almost laughably small. The search party, led by my uncle, consisted of Rob, an experienced tracker, and a few trained hounds. What had started as a straightforward mission to find a missing father and his young grandson had gradually transformed into an encounter with something far more sinister. The forest seemed to twist their perception, blur the line between reality and nightmare. Broken twigs were arranged unnaturally. Clumps of fur, unlike any animal native to the area, littered the forest floor, and faint handprints carved into tree bark with meticulous care were everywhere. They seemed to plead, warn, or perhaps even mock the searchers. Each clue suggested intent. Someone or something was orchestrating events with chilling precision. By the fifth day, tension had grown unbearable. Rob, usually pragmatic, began admitting he could not explain what he was seeing. Shadows flitted between trees with no discernible source of light. Low whispers echoed, almost forming words, then fading when he tried to focus. Even the wolf whistle, initially a practical warning, seemed to guide them along paths that twisted and led nowhere. The nights were the hardest. Sleep evaded them, broken by imagined footsteps, rustling foliage, and distant, unplaceable sounds. My uncle often stayed awake the longest, scanning the blackened canopy. Thoughts of the boy and his father haunted him incessantly. Were they cold, hungry, frightened? Were they even alive? On the seventh day, a grim discovery sent shivers through the team. Beneath mud and decaying leaves lay a small, torn backpack. Inside were personal items, unmistakably belonging to the missing grandson. A notebook, a pencil, and a toy. The notebook's pages were filled with what initially appeared to be random scribbles. Closer inspection revealed the subtle hints, greater than "follow the light." Not everyone who helps is kind. The implications were clear. The forest was not passive. It was an entity with intention, guiding, misleading, and testing the searchers. Every sign, every shadow, every sound carried a purpose. The team realized that they were no longer just following tracks. They were unraveling a deliberate, unseen narrative. As the days passed, the forest's presence became heavier, almost suffocating. Rob, the most grounded of the team, confessed to seeing shadows move independently of wind, of objects, even of gravity. My uncle swore he heard faint conversations among the trees, as though the forest itself spoke in hushed tones, passing on messages only partially comprehensible. The wolf whistle, once a practical alert, had taken on a more ambiguous role. Sometimes it drew them closer, sometimes it led them astray. A creeping dread settled into their bones. Each member felt it, a recognition that forces beyond comprehension were observing their every move. Sleep, already scarce, became impossible. Every rustle was interpreted as a threat. Every gust of wind seemed like a sentient push, testing their resolve. Rob muttered repeatedly, "These tracks, they're not human. None of this can belong to someone alive." My uncle, sensing the truth, nodded silently. The distinction between reality and nightmare blurred. The forest was alive in ways they could not yet understand. On the 10th day, the hounds led the team to an abandoned cabin hidden within a grove. The structure, nearly consumed by nature, emitted a palpable sense of foreboding. Its door hung crookedly, creaking ominously in the wind. Inside were remnants of recent occupation: a small cot, a few cans of food, and crude carvings on the walls depicting a family lost in an endless forest. The air was thick, part decay, part smoke, part something else entirely, something unplaceable. A chill ran down my uncle's spine. Every instinct screamed danger, yet the signs suggested human habitation, perhaps even recent. Following the cabin's clues, the team ventured into a narrow valley encased by sheer cliffs. Footprints led into a cavern partially concealed by overgrown vines. Darkness inside seemed alive, almost sentient, as if it were breathing, waiting. Suddenly, the boy appeared, alive yet terrified, standing beside a towering figure far larger than any human. The figure did not move aggressively, but observed them with a calm, almost intelligent intensity. My uncle raised his voice softly. "It's okay. We're here to help." The boy's eyes darted between the team and the figure. In a hushed whisper, he said, "They're not what they seem. They watch, but they protect too." The forest itself seemed to hold its breath. The towering figure finally stepped aside, allowing the boy to approach. My uncle embraced him, relief washing over the group. Yet questions remained. Shadows, the wolf whistle, and unexplained signs all suggested that the forest held secrets beyond human understanding. As they began leading the boy back, my uncle glanced over his shoulder at the lingering silhouettes. They faded into the dense foliage, leaving a sense of awe, fear, and unexplainable wonder. Though physically relieved, the psychological toll lingered. Rob admitted to experiencing inexplicable vertigo, as if reality itself shifted beneath him. Nights became haunted by dreams of moving shadows and whispered messages. The forest had left a mark, not only on their memory but on their very perception of reality. The boy clung to his father, and my uncle felt a surge of protective instinct, a reaffirmation of the human drive to confront fear and protect the vulnerable. The forest had tested them, but it had also guided them toward hope. In the valley, as the team led the boy out, a faint wolf whistle echoed again. This time, there was no threat, only guidance. The tall, shadowy figures lingered at the forest's edge, silent sentinels watching over the group. The boy looked back and smiled faintly, a gesture of reassurance that the forest's guardians were not entirely malevolent. The father and grandson were safe, yet the forest's mysteries remained. It was alive, watching, and deliberate. My uncle realized a profound truth. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the persistence to act despite it. Life's uncertainties are often beyond comprehension, yet hope and determination light the way. The story of the missing father and grandson became legend. Whispered in local villages, the tale carried awe, fear, and respect for the forest. But my uncle always understood the deeper truth. The forest was sentient in ways humans rarely perceive. Sometimes the greatest danger carries the greatest protection. The boy eventually recovered, yet the memory of the forest and its guardians remained etched in his mind. The father, once overwhelmed by fear, now carried a renewed sense of reverence for the unknown. The team returned to their lives forever changed. Even years later, whispers of the forest's sentinels persisted. Travelers reported fleeting shadows, distant whistles, and signs that no human could explain. The legend grew, but my uncle knew its core. The forest was alive, and sometimes the most terrifying mysteries are also the most protective forces of all. The missing father and grandson had been found, but the forest retained its secrets. My uncle learned that true bravery is not the absence of fear. It is acting in spite of it. Life is filled with enigmas, but hope, persistence, and courage guide us through darkness. And as they looked back one final time, the silhouettes at the forest's edge vanished into shadow, leaving awe, fear, and an unshakable realization. Some mysteries are never meant to be solved, but they are still worth confronting.